Initial Thoughts is a spoiler-free movie review series. All opinions are my own. Hi everyone, welcome back to Initial Thoughts, a series in which we talk about films as and when they're released. Today's film we're talking about is The Batman, one of the most anticipated films of the year, certainly will be one of the biggest releases of the year, which is directed by Matt Reeves and stars Robert Pattinson as the Caped Crusader. So over the past kind of 10, 15 years from the Nolan trilogy onwards, we've had a real influx of Batman content just everywhere, whether that be Batman vs Superman and in the Justice League side of things, which bar the Zack Snyder Justice League isn't really worth mentioning, as much as Ben Affleck was pretty decent. The Nolan trilogy as itself is undoubtedly fantastic, especially The Dark Knight. I don't need to tell you how good The Dark Knight is. You know how good The Dark Knight is. And more recently we have The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, which obviously is fantastic as well in the Batman Gotham universe, but in its own kind of pocket universe, it seems to be. And now we have a completely new iteration with a lot of the characters that you know, but a complete fresh look. There's nothing here that carries through from any of those pre-existing things. And not only does none of the actors portraying these characters carry through, it's very much its own new thing. It feels like a new genre for this character, a completely new genre. And while it isn't completely different to some of the aspects explored in things like The Dark Knight or Ben Affleck's version of the Batman, and certainly with more of the brutality that the Joker had and more maybe real and grittiness and dark side of the Joker film, these are things that with the Batman you would expect, especially in this influx of Marvel heroes that we have nowadays, of as much as some of the Marvel storytelling is brilliant, and as I've talked about numerous times here, you know, the good and the bad of Marvel on the channel so far, I do feel that we have got a bit conditioned into superheroes are just invincible and you never really feel like they're in any kind of danger, and it never really feels real. And I suppose that's not something, I mean, you go into a film, you're never going to think it's real, but there is a point where you check out before you go in, if you get my meaning with that. And something with this film, this Batman iteration, I want to start with talking about is this change in tone completely, as mentioned. I just think there was something from even the first beat of this film, and of course I'm not going to talk about any plot details as far as spoilery goes, just talking generally, but I feel that even from the first word spoken in this film, from the first scene, you can tell that this is not your normal superhero outing. It's actually not a superhero film. If that makes sense, it is the Batman and it is the character you know and love, but it's it's his Robert Pattinson's iteration of Batman is completely unrecognizable in some ways to the recently and previous iterations in Christian Bale and even Ben Affleck's or any of the other variations of this same character. This Batman isn't really a superhero. This Batman just happens to be someone who dresses up that's also just a brilliant detective and is his own vigilante. And obviously, as I mentioned, that is something that is explored in some of the previous iterations. But that was something that hit me from the minute this movie started. You realise that this is not the same. I would liken this a little bit to Logan. You know, the final outing as Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Logan as a film, you know, if you've seen, I mean, I can't say I'm a big fan of the X-Men movies as a whole. Some of them have their good qualities, but Logan is far and away one of the best, if not the best, Marvel film for me anyway. Just with because it takes such a grittier and adult, and again, I don't want to use the word real, but it feels like such a, you know, you're really rooting for this character, but you don't know why. And I feel that sometimes that that kind of echoes through to the Batman character here, and obviously with them being completely different universes, one's DC, one's Marvel, but I feel that I got a lot of this going into this. I had, to be honest, like a lot of you guys, even listen to this video, I would imagine you've heard a lot of good things about this film, and I had heard that too going into this. I have to be honest, but I did go in. I didn't go in going, okay, I'm automatically going to love the Batman, because I'm a big fan of The Dark Knight, and for me, The Dark Knight is if it's not the best superhero movie, it's certainly right at the top. It's definitely either the first on my list, or it's second or third at most. It's always going to be right up there. So going in and seeing a complete new iteration of Batman with the guy who was in Twilight, and that's a good segue on talk. Let's talk about some performances in this, and let's start with none other than Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson in this film will be compared to people like Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, of course, as they've recently played the Batman. But they're just so different. Once you've seen the film, and I hope by now you have, or you're planning to, you will see what I mean. Robert Pattinson as this Batman is a completely different person. I mean, on the surface he's not, but this is a very dark, very even almost introverted man that is, his true self is the Batman. He isn't Bruce Wayne, he is the Batman. And that's something that Robert Pattinson, I know he's had his critics, and I suppose, if you're in something as bad as Twilight is, that comes with the territory to a level. But last year I spoke in length, if you've seen the initial thoughts and you've been around the channel a lot, you heard my praise for Kristen Stewart as she broke away from that, again, Twilight chain that she had around her neck of, she's never going to make it, like she is, she's Twilight girl, she's not. And then she gives a performance like she does in Spencer, and then you go, oh my god. Robert Pattinson has had a few performances, things like The Lighthouse, things like Tenet. As much as Tenet wasn't a film I didn't love, and I definitely don't think it's certainly in the top kind of 5 of Nolan's work, I thought that him in that was brilliant, and that was around the time I thought, okay, I had heard that the Batman was going to be him. I thought, okay, it's an interesting cast, and I wasn't as maybe as vocal as a lot of people were at the time. So skip ahead to now, and I've just recently, just come out of the film about an hour ago, and I just thought I would sit down and talk about it, and I think that it's a wonderful performance by him. It says it's one thing to read a script, but it's another thing to act with your eyes. Act with your, emote with your body and your face without smiling, without, really expressing yourself by being expressionless. Do you get what? Hopefully that makes sense. And I suppose if you have seen the film, you will see that. And I don't want to linger too much on each performance, but I do want to talk a little bit about some other performances. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman in this. And don't get me wrong, I did like Anne Hathaway, and I do like Anne Hathaway in general as an actress. She's wonderful in some things, but her as Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises certainly wasn't one of the core elements of the film, let's say. She was more like an add-on. Zoe Kravitz in this film is a wonderful addition, and is a wonderful performance by her, and her dynamic with Robert Pattinson, her eccentric nature, with Robert Pattinson being the complete opposite of that. It really is masterful storytelling between the two of them. And add into the mix, you've got Commissioner Gordon, and not to mention anything about Gary Oldman, because Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon, and Gary Oldman in general, all these actors, all these legendary actors, what can I say to add to the acclaim of what Gary Oldman's done through his career? And Commissioner Gordon, one of my favourite of his characters, and that says something. But Jeffrey Wright in here is completely different. Completely different. Some of the beats are the same. And that, all these iterations, that goes back to what I said about all these, it's the same characters, but they're completely different. And you may as well be watching a different film in a different genre, in a different world. this is fantastic, this film. The Batman is fantastic. I can't get over how much I love this film. I don't know what it is. I'm going to probably be watching it about 3 or 4 times before it leaves the theaters. But I feel that I can't. This is my overall thought. And before we get to ratings, before we get to anything, I just have to say I am amazed that The Dark Knight and the Batman both exist and are both as good as they are. And I don't think it's in any way right to say any one is better than the other. Not that, because The Dark Knight has the legacy. The Dark Knight is it's one of the truly great films, never mind superhero films, and it's one of those ones that stands the test of time. It's been, nearly 15 years since that was released, and it's still as loved as ever. And that's the benchmark for just hero and villain storytelling is The Dark Knight, really. Whereas this film is not that. It's not trying to be that, and that's something that I absolutely love. It's not trying to be, we'll one up the Dark Knight, we'll do the same thing, and it's completely different. This is a crime, nearly like a murder mystery. The best description I can give this is The Dark Knight, obviously with a Batman element, but for that alone, meets Seven, the film Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt in the 90s. A wonderful, wonderful film. As dark and as sinister as it is, this is like a perfect blend of those two films. And I thought that, some of the performances, basically every performance is fantastic. 3 more I want to mention before we move off performances. Colin Farrell as Penguin. I'm not convinced Colin Farrell was in this film, because that is how good first of all, the effects on his face to make him not look like Colin Farrell is amazing. It's nearly like CGI, but like better. We're not talking like this is it's amazing. I again, the voice he puts on, the persona that he has adopted as the Penguin. You've got Danny DeVito's Penguin in the older films, which is just like a comedy character. His Penguin, you could see as a real person. And that's, you see and you believe that he actually exists. And that leads me perfectly on to Paul Dano as the Riddler. Because the Riddler is a character, and don't get me wrong, talking about Danny DeVito, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, as awful, as truly awful as those films are, Jim Carrey as the Riddler is good fun. But Paul Dano as the Riddler is a true villain. Like, this is not a villain that is so eccentric and so over the top that he's not believable. The people like the Riddler exist, not to the point where, they're I don't know, maybe mainstream serial killers that everybody knows about, but I'm sure there's people in the world that are as sadistic and awful and have such a hatred for the world as the Riddler does. And that's something that is portrayed amazingly by Paul Dano. What a performance by him. And I can't say I'm massively queued up on a lot of his work. I know he was in There Will Be Blood, I know he was in a few other things, but his performance in here, I just thought was... I can't praise it enough. I cannot praise Paul Dano as the Riddler enough. Amazing performance. They were all amazing performances. I don't want to keep lingering on performances, so let's move on to kind of my overall thoughts on the film. And my overall thoughts are this. The Batman is a film I went in, truthfully, expecting quite a bit. Not that I wanted it to be as good as The Dark Knight, but what I did want it was to be completely different. What I got was exactly what I was after. The Batman is an amazing cinematic experience. It is exactly what you want in a Batman film. You want something different. well, I maybe people wanted some of the same. That's fair enough, and maybe this isn't for everybody. But for me, what I wanted was a slow crime drama that builds the tension, feels like you're engaged with the characters. You know, so again, I said earlier about Seven. It feels like that, but it just happened to have the Batman, and that extra dynamic adds to it so well. This film is truly breathtaking that they pulled this off. The fact, I keep repeating the same points because I can't get over this. The Dark Knight and the Batman both exist for the same character in completely different genres, completely different film, and are both absolutely fantastic. This is amazing. The biggest of credit to Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves, you know, with the Apes trilogy, he is really staking his claim for one of the top directors about at the minute. He really is, and that shows. This is his. I mean, I like the Apes trilogy a lot, especially the second film. I thought was wonderful, but this is gotta be his crowning glory so far, and I'm excited to see what Matt Reeves does ongoing. And I know that Robert Pattinson has signed on for, I think it's a trilogy for this. I am all there for it, and I hope Matt Reeves stays on board for all three films. This film, The Batman, is truly, truly wonderful. I cannot implore you enough to go and see this film. What I will say, it's 3 hours, and that may put people off. If people are in a bit of a kind of, what the best way to describe it would be like a Marvel mindset. That's how I'm looking at it. Which is, if you go in, bad guy, good guy, it's an hour and a half, it's maybe 2 hours, and it all ties in the same story. You already know the characters going in. If you go into this with a fresh, just let the story flow. I found the start of the film engaging, the middle engaging, the end engaging. There wasn't a part where I was checked out. There wasn't a part when I felt the scene went on too long. There wasn't a part where I felt that any time was wasted in the 3 hours. It's not often with a film you can say that, because even in the best films, sometimes there is filler. Maybe not in the truly great films of cinema, but this film is just great. This film is just great. I can't praise it enough. I truly am a happy boy tonight. I really am. Anyway, let's get to rating time. That's what you're waiting for. IMDb has given this an 8.8 out of 10. People seem genuinely happy with it. People seem to be on the same boat as me. But I'm going even higher. The Batman is a film that I truly can't wait to see again. I have only just left the cinema, and I cannot wait to go and see it again. The Batman is a wonderful, wonderful film, and it is my first ever golden 10 out of 10. I didn't think going into this, I was hoping for a 9, I'll be honest with you. I was hoping for a 9, but I cannot find fault in what they've achieved here. And it's as simple as that. You know, if you went into it expecting something that isn't the themes explored here, if you wanted something different, that's fair enough. If this isn't what you wanted for Batman, that's fine. But what I wanted, I wanted something different, but I wanted something truly honing of the craft of filmmaking. And this just is that. This is a film that is so smartly put together, from production to casting to direction to lighting to score. The score in this is unbelievable. Do you know what? This video could go on forever, guys. The film is so good. It's a 10 out of 10 in my books. I love this film. I cannot wait to see it again. I hope and pray you get a chance to see it yourselves. If you do, let me know. Let me know. Did you hate it? Did you say? Have I completely led you down the garden path and said, why did he say that was so good? It's up to you. Everybody's got their own opinions, and that's fair enough. For me, the Batman is fantastic, and I will certainly be booking my tickets probably in the next 10-15 minutes for the next showing. Anyway, guys, that's the end of my initial thoughts on the Batman. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to me talk about films, and yeah, it finally happened. I've finally got a 10 out of 10 film after doing this for almost a year. We've talked about a lot of films so far, initial thoughts, but it's nice to have our first golden 10 out of 10. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for taking your time out of your day to listen to me talk about movies, as always. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, let me know. If you are new to the channel, if you've just found the channel for the first time, first of all, welcome. And if you enjoyed, hit the subscribe button, let me know, and there'll certainly be more content. All the biggest release of the year, I'll be here, and I hope how good would it be, guys, if we could get more than one 10 out of 10 for this year? What a year 2022 would be. You know, even if I get a 10 and a few 9s, that would be absolutely beautiful. Anyway, I appreciate you guys so much, you know that, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Before you go, here are some of my other videos. For updates and information on upcoming videos, the best place to find us is my Twitter. Much love, everyone.